Rituals rule results. Show me your day, I'll show your life. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That's not just strategy, it's survival. In a distracted, fast-moving world, success doesn't go to the most talented. It goes to the most consistent. And consistency is never an accident. It's engineered by ritual. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are rehearsing your future. Your morning scroll? A rehearsal. The third snooze tap? A rehearsal. The skipped lunch, the late-night binge, the way you rush, avoid, or react, each one casting silent votes for the life you're building. And while we chase breakthrough moments, real transformation hides in the repeatable. Motivation is a spark. Ritual is a furnace. James Clear said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." That quote lives at the heart of this book, not as a theory, but as a challenge. Because your systems are your rituals. Not just what you do, but what you default to. This book isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about getting honest about what's already on it, especially the routines you've let run in the background. Because those background loops are your blueprint. If you don't design them, they'll quietly design you. You don't need a new life. You need a new day on repeat. Let this book be a mirror, a map, and a match. A mirror to reveal what's shaping you. A map to guide new rhythms. And a match to ignite a ritual-driven life that runs deeper than discipline. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Silent Architect. A plane veers off course by just 1 degree and ends up hundreds of miles from its destination. A tiny shift, repeated long enough, changes everything. That's what rituals do. Not in grand gestures, but in quiet repetitions that go unnoticed until the results are undeniable. Most people imagine life change like a movie montage, dramatic gym scenes, breakthroughs in the rain, sudden clarity at midnight. But in real life, change is boring before it's beautiful. It looks like showing up when no one's watching. Like laying a single brick, over and over, until a structure stands where chaos used to live. Rituals are the silent architect behind every stable structure. They design your reactions before pressure arrives. They shape your mood before the world gets a say. They whisper who you are long before anyone else can see it. Want to know where someone's life is heading? Don't ask about their dreams. Watch their Tuesday. The problem is, most people don't realize they already have rituals. Habits feel passive, like something that happens to us. But rituals are decisions, subtle ones, stacked and cemented by repetition. Wake up and check your phone. That's a ritual. Skip breakfast and sprint into the day? Ritual. Procrastinate until pressure hits? Ritual. None of them chosen with intention, but powerful nonetheless. This book isn't about adopting someone else's morning routine. It's about becoming conscious of yours. It's about noticing what your autopilot is quietly normalizing. Because your rituals are casting votes for your future every single day. Look closely at anyone whose life you admire. You'll find rituals behind their results. A writer doesn't finish books because they're inspired, they finish because they write at the same time every morning. An elite athlete doesn't train hard just because they're motivated, they train because it's non-negotiable. Ritual has replaced the need to decide. And that's the magic. Rituals remove friction. They eliminate the constant internal debate. Should I? Shouldn't I? Later? Now? When something becomes ritualized, it becomes neutral. Not a debate. Not a battle. Just what you do. That's the gift and the danger. Because ritual cuts both ways. If you ritualize distraction, avoidance, or numbing, those become your foundation too. A day of avoidance becomes a week of drift, then a year of lost momentum. But the good news? Change doesn't require an overhaul. Just one keystone ritual can tip the scale. One small, strategic shift, repeated with intention, can ripple into every area of your life. 5 minutes of clarity in the morning. A nightly wind down without screens. A pause and breathe ritual before entering a stressful meeting. These aren't massive moves. But like that 1 degree shift on a plane, over time, they land you in a different life. The question isn't whether you have rituals. The question is, are they building the life you want, or quietly unraveling it? Rituals are never neutral. They're always shaping, always steering. And right now, without asking your permission, they are either aligning you with your values or pulling you away from them. So pause. Zoom in. Pay attention. This chapter isn't about action yet, it's about awareness. Before you can change what you do, you have to see what you're already doing. Every system you run starts somewhere. And it starts small. But small doesn't mean insignificant. It means powerful. Hidden. Quietly architectural. Like a silent blueprint shaping a skyscraper, your rituals are designing your life, brick by invisible brick. Start noticing. Your rituals are already shaping your future, even if unintentional. Small daily actions compound into massive long-term direction. Rituals remove decision fatigue, but they can build or break you. What silent rituals are guiding your day without your permission? For the next 24 hours, write down every repeated behavior you notice, morning to night. No judgment, just observation. Chapter 2: What you repeat, you become. A single drop of water doesn't carve a canyon. But a drop repeated, again and again, can split stone. That's how identity is shaped. Not in dramatic declarations, but in what you repeat when no one's watching. The world loves moments of inspiration. The big speech. The life-changing decision. The sudden turnaround. But behind every public win is 1,000 private repetitions. Rituals are less about who you are now and more about who you're becoming. What you repeat, you eventually believe. And what you believe, you eventually embody. Repetition isn't glamorous. It's not viral. But it's magnetic. The brain is designed to follow patterns. To favor familiarity. Each time you act, you're casting a vote not just for a result, but for a type of person. The more you act like a leader, a writer, a disciplined parent, a grounded friend, the more your identity shifts to match. The actions lead. The self-image follows. That's why rituals matter. Not just because they build outcomes, but because they build belief. Someone says, "I'm not a morning person." But after 3 weeks of waking up early to journal and move, they're not just adjusting a schedule, they're altering a story. Someone else says, "I'm terrible with follow-through." But after finishing a short task daily, even small, they're proving otherwise. Ritual is the proof point identity leans on. Ritual is how belief gets built brick by brick. Too often, people wait for confidence before they act. But action precedes confidence. You don't become consistent because you believe you're a consistent person, you become a consistent person by showing up consistently. You don't write because you're a writer. You become a writer because you write. Ritual is the scaffolding that allows the new version of you to form before you feel worthy of it. Repetition rewires the story you tell yourself. But here's the twist, this works both ways. If you repeatedly say yes when you mean no, that shapes your identity too. If you skip workouts and say, "I'll start tomorrow," your brain doesn't care about intention, it registers behavior. And behavior is identity's foundation. This is why change feels so hard. Because even when you're trying to do something new, your rituals are fighting for the old. Not out of sabotage, but familiarity. The brain is lazy in the best and worst ways. It favors patterns because patterns conserve energy. And rituals, especially unconscious ones, are well-worn grooves. So starting a new ritual isn't just about behavior, it's about friction. Every new pattern creates tension with the old. But friction isn't failure. It's proof you're rewriting. That's why small, strategic repetition is so powerful. It builds wins without triggering resistance. It allows the new story to grow quietly, almost invisibly, until one day it becomes who you are. You are not defined by what you want. You are defined by what you repeat. Want to be more focused? Repeat one focus ritual daily. Want to be more grounded? Repeat one moment of intentional pause. The magic isn't in the magnitude, it's in the motion. And once that motion becomes your new rhythm, identity catches up. Ritual is the rehearsal for who you're becoming. No announcement. No applause. Just quiet proof stacked in your favor. So ask yourself, what are you repeating? And what is that repetition saying about who you are becoming? Because in the end, your future self is hiding inside your current routines. Identity follows action. Repetition builds belief. Rituals don't just create results, they shape who you believe you are. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally intend. What identity are your current rituals reinforcing, intentionally or not? Choose one small daily action that aligns with the identity you want to build. Repeat it for the next 3 days, no exceptions. Chapter 3: Morning is a mirror. The first hour of your day is not a throwaway. It's a mirror. And what you reflect into it determines the shape of everything that follows. You don't need a 12-step morning routine or a monk-like sunrise ritual to change your life. But you do need to recognize that how you begin is often how you continue. A chaotic morning rarely leads to a centered afternoon. A reactive start rarely turns into a proactive day. The beginning sets the emotional temperature. It becomes the filter through which everything else passes. Most people don't plan their mornings. They stumble into them. Eyes half open, thumb scrolling, already behind. The day begins not with clarity, but with consumption. Not with intention, but with input. And in that one decision, to react before they've rooted themselves, they surrender the steering wheel. But the truth is, you already have a morning ritual. Everyone does. The question is whether it's by design or by default. Whether it grounds you or scatters you. Whether it serves you or silently erodes you. The most successful people don't have the same rituals. But they do share one thing: they own the first part of their day. Not in the same way, but with the same intention. A few minutes of movement. A still moment of reflection. A page written. A plan reviewed. These are anchors, not obligations. And their power doesn't come from how long they last, it comes from what they activate. When you control your first inputs, you control your first impressions of the day. You prime your mind before the world pulls it in 100 directions. You decide the tone instead of inheriting someone else's. And that's not just psychological, it's neurological. The brain's early moments are incredibly plastic, highly sensitive to suggestion. What you feed it early, it uses to shape focus, mood, and motivation for hours to come. That's why the first 60 minutes are sacred ground. It's not about perfection. Some mornings will be messy. Some will be rushed. But rituals create defaults. And defaults create safety nets. You don't have to feel amazing, you just follow the system. And the system builds momentum when your willpower won't. Imagine two versions of the same person. One starts the day with a scroll, a sigh, a sprint. Already late, already stressed, already reactive. The other begins with 3 minutes of silence, 2 glasses of water, and 5 written lines of intention. Small rituals, easily dismissed. But repeat them for 90 days, and you'll watch those lives diverge. Morning is leverage. It doesn't care how yesterday went. It doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs a pattern, one that honors who you want to become more than what you feel like in the moment. The goal isn't to copy someone else's routine. The goal is to claim the first stretch of your day and fill it with cues that point you in the right direction. Your version might be simple. That's not a weakness, it's a strength. Because rituals don't work when they overwhelm. They work when they stick. What you do in the first hour is not about achievement. It's about alignment. It's about remembering, before the noise arrives, what matters. And when the world does come knocking, you meet it from a centered place, not a scattered one. Because how you greet the morning is how you greet your life. Your morning rituals reflect and direct your entire day. Control your first inputs, and you shape your mindset, focus, and emotions. Small, intentional habits in the morning compound into long-term clarity. What's the first thing you feed your mind when you wake up, and what is it feeding in you? Design a 10-minute morning ritual that grounds you. Practice it tomorrow, before touching your phone. Chapter 4: Default Mode versus Design Mode. Every system has a default setting. Unless interrupted, it repeats. Your life works the same way. You wake up, move through routines, respond to pressures, cope in familiar ways. Not because you chose them recently, but because they were chosen once and never questioned again. This is the difference between default mode and design mode. Default mode is easy. It's automatic. You do what you've always done. Not because it works, but because it's familiar. Default doesn't require effort. It just needs permission. And over time, permission turns into pattern, and pattern becomes identity. You stop asking if it's working, you just assume it's who you are. But design mode is different. It interrupts. It asks questions. It zooms out and says, is this how I want to live, or just how I've learned to cope? Design isn't about throwing everything away. It's about becoming conscious. It's about choosing with intention what default has chosen by convenience. Most people live in default mode without realizing it. Wake up, scroll, rush. Work, react, escape. Wind down, numb out, repeat. They think they're choosing. But the truth is, their rituals are choosing for them. Not because they're lazy, but because default is the path of least resistance. And this matters because rituals compound. A 5-minute scroll every morning seems harmless, until it becomes the lens through which you see your day. A late-night habit of zoning out seems like relief, until it becomes the reason you never get restful sleep. Each small choice reinforces a larger direction. Design mode, by contrast, is disruptive, but freeing. It says, let me look at my routines like a strategist, not a sleepwalker. It doesn't mean doing more. It means doing with clarity. When you design your rituals, you create a structure that serves you, not enslaves you. Think of it like an operating system. Default mode runs silently, using outdated code. Design mode updates it. It rewrites the program so your actions reflect your values, not your autopilot. But just like rewriting code, it takes effort, at least at first. This is where most people get stuck. They try to shift into design mode with grand overhauls. Wake up at 5 a.m., run 5 miles. Meditate for 30 minutes. Write a journal. Drink a gallon of water. It's too much. Too fast. And when it collapses, they retreat back to default, believing they've failed. But design doesn't demand dramatic change. It just asks for deliberate ones. One ritual. One shift. One moment of awareness turned into action. That's enough to start. Because once you design one area of your day, you feel the difference. You see how intentional choices change emotional tone. And from there, momentum grows. Design mode isn't about control, it's about alignment. You're not trying to perfect your life. You're trying to make sure your rituals match your direction. That what you do matches who you say you want to be. Default mode may feel easier, but it costs more in the long run. It trades short-term comfort for long-term confusion. Design mode, on the other hand, feels harder at first, but it pays dividends in clarity, energy, and self-respect. So ask yourself, what's one ritual you're doing daily that you never actually chose? Then ask, what would the designed version of this ritual look like? Your life will always be built by rituals. The only question is whether they're chosen by your highest self or inherited from your lowest autopilot. Choose design. One ritual at a time. Default mode runs on autopilot, design mode runs on intention. Unexamined rituals often lead to unintentional outcomes. Designing your rituals creates structure, clarity, and alignment. Which part of your day feels most like it's on autopilot, and what would a designed version of that look like? Identify one default ritual. Redesign it today with intention, even in a small way. Chapter 5. The Power of Predecisions. A decision made in the moment is a decision made under pressure. And pressure rarely produces your best judgment. That's where rituals offer their secret weapon, predecisions. Tiny, repeated choices made ahead of time, removing the need to negotiate with yourself later. When you decide in advance, you bypass the mental tug-of-war. No more waking up and asking, should I work out today? No more debates over whether to journal, meditate, hydrate, stretch, write, or breathe. You've already decided, The ritual holds the line so you don't have to. And that's the genius of it. Predecisions conserve willpower. They eliminate choice fatigue. In a world drowning in options, clarity is a form of freedom. When your ritual is in place, you don't need to feel like it. You just follow the path you've already paved. Think about a pilot. Before the plane ever leaves the runway, the flight path is programmed. Altitude, speed, direction, it's all set. Mid-flight turbulence doesn't require a full recalculation. The system adjusts, but the course remains. That's how pre-decided rituals work. Life will throw noise, stress, interruption. But the ritual holds the shape. Without rituals, every day becomes a string of small decisions that drain your energy. What time do I wake up? What should I eat? Do I scroll or reflect? Should I start this now or later? It's exhausting. But when you design your rituals ahead of time, those questions disappear. You've already answered them. This isn't about living like a robot. It's about liberating your mind from tasks that should already be settled. That way, your energy is reserved for higher-level thinking, not survival-mode juggling. Predecisions also protect your values. You can't always trust your feelings, especially under stress or fatigue. But a ritual, decided in advance, acts like a guardian. When you're tired, it still shows up. When you're unmotivated, it still moves. You don't rise to your highest potential under pressure, you fall back to your preparation. Take food choices, for example. The person who meal preps or plans ahead eats intentionally. The person who wings it grabs whatever's closest. One predecision changes not just the meal, but the mood, the energy, the chain reaction afterward. The same principle applies to how you start your workday. A planned focus ritual beats 10 scattered minutes of inbox surfing. A predecided pause in the afternoon, 5 minutes of stillness or movement, can reset your brain more than an hour of doom scrolling. The point isn't rigidity. It's rhythm. Predecisions allow you to build rituals that move with your life, not against it. You don't have to plan every second. But anchoring key transitions in your day with predecided actions keeps you aligned when circumstances shift. Without them, chaos makes your choices for you. With them, clarity leads the way. Here's the deeper truth. Every ritual is a vote for the future you. Every time you predecide to honor your priorities, you're building trust with yourself. You're proving that who you want to be is not a wish, it's a practice. Rituals don't make you perfect. But they make you prepared. They don't eliminate challenge. But they eliminate confusion. And in a distracted world, clarity is a superpower. So ask yourself, what decisions am I making daily that could be made once and turn into ritual? Because when your rituals make the decisions, your energy is free to create, to lead, to live. Predecisions remove mental fatigue and preserve energy for what matters. Rituals act as internal systems that hold steady under stress. The fewer choices you leave to chance, the more consistent your life becomes. Where in your day are you constantly negotiating with yourself, and what predecision could remove that friction? Pick one decision you make daily. Predecide it tonight. Turn it into a ritual tomorrow. Chapter 6: Micro Wins, Major Momentum. Success doesn't start with sweeping changes. It starts with a single step, repeated. Not for drama. For direction. The world celebrates big wins, overnight transformations, massive goals crushed, viral breakthroughs. But behind every one of those highlights is a series of micro wins, small, consistent victories that compound over time. These wins may not look impressive on the outside, but they carry weight. They build momentum. They create proof. Momentum is a psychological edge. It doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. A 2-minute ritual, done every day, is more powerful than a 2-hour burst once a month. Why? Because consistency is what tells the brain, this is who I am now. Repetition builds reputation, with yourself. That's the magic of micro wins. They're small enough to do without resistance but strong enough to shift your trajectory. You don't need to overhaul your life to get results. You need a ritual that's so simple, it feels almost too easy to ignore. 1 push-up every morning. 1 sentence written. 1 glass of water before coffee. When done with intention, these small actions act like switches, flipping the mind into progress mode. Why does this work? Because micro wins create emotional evidence. They give you a win early, and that win changes your posture. You walk differently when you're already succeeding. You speak with more clarity. You face stress with more stability. A micro win tells your brain, we're in motion, and motion fuels motivation far more than motivation fuels motion. The mistake people make is waiting to feel inspired before acting. But micro wins flip the order. Act first. Let that action create movement. Let movement generate belief. And let belief expand capacity. This is where rituals shine. They make success feel inevitable, not intimidating. A 5-minute ritual of stretching each morning may not seem like much. But do it daily, and your body changes. Your mind shifts. You start carrying yourself differently, not because of the stretch, but because of what it represents: follow through. Micro wins don't just move you forward. They build trust. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you strengthen the muscle of integrity. You stop being surprised when you show up. You start expecting it. Consider the difference between someone who journals for 5 minutes daily and someone who plans to write a memoir someday. One has a system. The other has a wish. One has momentum. The other has pressure. Pressure paralyzes. But momentum compounds. This applies across every area: health, relationships, focus, creativity. The parent who takes 3 mindful breaths before entering the house after work builds a calmer evening. The leader who starts the day with 1 sentence of clarity creates a ripple through their team. The student who studies for 10 minutes before breakfast is training more than memory, they're training identity. It's not the size of the ritual. It's the direction it points you in. Because the truth is, your brain isn't measuring how grand the action is. It's measuring whether you showed up. And each time you do, the next showing up becomes easier. Success isn't found in the mountaintop moments. It's built in the hidden repetition at the base. Start small. Win early. Stack momentum. Let ritual do the rest. Micro wins build momentum faster than motivation ever could. Small, consistent rituals rewire identity and build emotional traction. Repetition builds trust, with yourself and your direction. What's one tiny action you can repeat daily that would build quiet momentum in your life? Choose 1 micro win you can achieve in under 5 minutes. Do it today. Then again tomorrow. Let it grow. Chapter 7: Rituals that Rewire. Your brain is not fixed. It's adaptable. Moldable. Constantly rewiring itself based on what you repeat. This is the power of neuroplasticity, the ability of your mind to reshape its structure through experience. And nothing sculpts the brain more effectively than ritual. Every repeated action strengthens a neural pathway. At first, it's like walking through tall grass. Awkward. Slow. Unfamiliar. But walk that path again and again, and it becomes a trail. Keep walking, and the trail becomes a road. Eventually, it's a highway. Fast. Automatic. Default. That's how rituals become identity, not by force, but by frequency. This is why willpower alone doesn't work long term. Willpower is a sprint. Ritual is a marathon. When you rely on motivation, you're battling your brain's old wiring with sheer effort. But when you build rituals, you're building a new route entirely, one your brain begins to prefer because it's familiar, efficient, and easier to travel. Rituals are not about discipline for the sake of suffering. They're about training your mind to crave what serves you. Let's say you start a daily writing ritual. At first, resistance shows up loud. You feel clunky, distracted. But by day 7, you're quicker to enter flow. By day 20, your brain starts craving that rhythm. The cue becomes a trigger, and the ritual becomes a loop. Not because the task changed, but because the wiring did. This applies to focus, mood, creativity, resilience. Rituals are the reps that strengthen the circuits you want to rely on. Want more calm in your day? Ritualize stillness. Want more clarity? Ritualize reflection. Want deeper relationships? Ritualize presence. Repetition doesn't just reinforce behavior, it changes the default settings in your brain. This is why random acts of self-improvement rarely stick. One big push can't compete with repeated nudges. The brain doesn't reward intensity. It rewards consistency. Neural pathways don't form because you tried hard once. They form because you showed up, again and again, regardless of mood. Every ritual you practice is either reinforcing an old pattern or creating a new one. And here's the key: you don't need to wait months to feel the change. The brain begins responding immediately to structure. Even after a few days, it starts signaling. This matters. Keep going. Dopamine isn't just released after results, it's released in anticipation of routine. That's the brilliance of ritual. The reward starts showing up early, if you stay consistent. But it also means your current rituals, especially the unconscious ones, are wiring something too. The nightly scroll. The midday sugar hit. The procrastination loop. They're not just behaviors. They're neurological blueprints being reinforced with every repeat. That's why breaking a habit feels like breaking a trance. Because you're not just changing what you do, you're pruning the pathways your brain has learned to favor. The good news? New wiring is always possible. Always. No matter how deep the groove, the brain can be retrained. But it won't happen with occasional effort. It happens with ritual. With rhythm. With a quiet commitment to repeat what serves your future, not your fatigue. So what are you rehearsing? What behaviors are you burning into your brain through daily repetition? Rituals are the keyboard. Your mind is the software. Every time you repeat a pattern, you're writing code. And over time, that code runs your life, whether you realize it or not. The only way to change the script is to change the ritual. Rituals rewire your brain by forming and strengthening neural pathways. Repetition creates default settings. Choose them with intention. The brain rewards consistent structure, not occasional intensity. Which daily ritual is currently rewiring your brain in a direction you don't want? Pick one behavior you want to reinforce. Anchor it with a daily cue. Repeat it for 7 days, no exceptions. Chapter 8: Stress Rituals, What You Run To. Everyone has rituals. But the most revealing ones don't happen on a good day. They show up when things fall apart. When pressure mounts. When you're tired, anxious, overwhelmed. In those moments, you don't rise, you return. You return to what's been rehearsed. You run to the familiar. These are your stress rituals. Most people never name them, but they're deeply ingrained. The late-night binge after a hard day. The angry scroll through headlines. The passive-aggressive silence. The third cup of coffee instead of a 10-minute break. They're not conscious choices, they're default escapes. But make no mistake, they're rituals. Repeated responses trained over time to offer comfort, control, or distraction. What you run to in stress reveals your true system. Not the one you hope for, but the one you've practiced. And that's where the danger lies. Because while stress rituals might soothe in the moment, they often sabotage in the long run. They promise relief but leave residue. You feel better for 10 minutes, but worse for the rest of the night. You avoid the hard thing and reinforce the habit of avoidance. The loop tightens. And the brain, always watching, always wiring, records the pattern as a preferred pathway. This is why awareness matters. You can't change a stress ritual you haven't named. You can't interrupt a loop you haven't noticed. And you definitely can't replace it with something better if you're still believing it's harmless. Start by observing. Where do you go when you're under pressure? What do you reach for? Who do you become? Not in your best moments, but your breaking ones. The answers are there, silent, consistent, shaping you. Now here's the opportunity. Stress rituals can be redesigned. You don't need to white-knuckle your way through pressure. You need a better pattern. One that regulates, not numbs. One that grounds, not distracts. One that builds strength, not just relief. That doesn't mean meditation on a mountaintop or hours of journaling. It means one conscious shift in the moment of stress. Instead of reaching for the phone, pause and breathe for 60 seconds. Instead of reacting with sarcasm, excuse yourself and reset. Instead of spiraling mentally, get your body moving for 3 minutes. Small. Repeatable. Ritual. You won't always catch it in time. That's normal. But every time you do, and every time you choose differently, you weaken the old pathway and strengthen a new one. That's not just emotional maturity, it's neurological training. And over time, your body learns, this is how we respond now. This is what safety feels like. This is who we are under pressure. Stress rituals aren't about perfection. They're about pattern. You're not aiming to never feel overwhelmed. You're learning to build rituals that serve you even when you do. Athletes do this with breath work between plays. Leaders do it with grounding questions before tough conversations. Teachers do it with reset routines between classes. These aren't luxuries. They're lifelines. They turn chaos into clarity. Because when the heat rises, you will default to your training. And if your training is reaction, that's where you'll live. But if your training is ritual that calms, centers, clarifies, then even in stress, you can act instead of react. So ask yourself, honestly, what do I run to when I feel overwhelmed? Is it helping me heal, or just helping me hide? Stress is not the enemy. It's the revealer. And your rituals in those moments are the architecture of your resilience. Stress rituals are the default patterns you run to when pressure hits. These rituals either soothe and strengthen, or numb and weaken. You can train your brain to run to patterns that regulate, not sabotage. What's one stress ritual you've normalized that may be quietly sabotaging your growth? Identify one common stress moment this week. Plan a 60-second replacement ritual for it. Practice it the next time pressure hits. Chapter 9: Evening as the Engineer. Most people treat the evening as a soft fade-out. A blur of screen time, snacks, or mindless scrolling. But the final hour of your day is more than a cooldown, it's a blueprint. Because the way you end your day is quietly engineering the way you begin the next. Evening rituals are not about productivity. They're about positioning. They position your body for rest, your mind for recovery, and your spirit for reflection. Without them, you carry the noise of today into the promise of tomorrow. Sleep becomes shallow. Mornings become rushed. And the cycle continues unchecked. The brain doesn't power down on command. It needs cues. Just like a plane doesn't drop from cruising altitude to the runway in a second, your mind needs a descent pattern. That's what an evening ritual does. It lowers the volume gradually, giving your system permission to slow, settle, and release. The most powerful evening rituals aren't complicated. They're consistent. One small act to mark the end of work. One intentional choice to reclaim attention. One rhythm that tells your brain, we're safe now. You can let go. This might look like dimming the lights at a certain hour. Turning off devices 30 minutes before bed. Reading a page instead of watching a reel. Naming 3 wins from the day. Stretching in silence. Even brushing your teeth with more awareness becomes a cue if done with consistency. These rituals work not because they're magical, but because they're meaningful. They're signals. And the body loves signals. Over time, they build a bridge between wake and rest, tension and release, noise and peace. But most people skip this bridge. They crash into sleep with cortisol still spiking. They flood their brain with stimulation and expect it to power down instantly. It doesn't work that way. What you do in the last 30 minutes before bed is not neutral. It's shaping your nervous system, your sleep quality, and your ability to recharge. There's also an emotional layer here. The evening is your final opportunity to interpret the day. If you end in chaos, your brain stores chaos. If you end with intention, your brain stores closure. And that affects how you process, dream, and wake. Reflection doesn't need to be deep to be effective. One question, what did I learn today? Can shift your entire perspective. One pause to breathe slowly can signal to your body that the day is complete. One note of gratitude, spoken or written, can tilt your mind away from worry and toward wonder. Designing your evening isn't about adding rituals. It's about replacing the ones that already exist. Because right now you already have them. The shows, the snacks, the endless scroll, they're rituals too. The question is not whether you have an evening routine. It's whether it's helping you build recovery or just delay it. And here's the truth: tomorrow doesn't start in the morning. It starts the night before. Sleep is the most powerful recovery tool you have, but it must be protected. Ritual is the protection. Ritual is the path. So instead of crashing into rest, craft your descent. Make it smooth. Make it yours. Let it be a gentle return to self, not an escape from stress. Because when the evening is designed with care, the morning arrives with clarity. Evening rituals signal your body and brain that it's time to release and recover. The way you end your day shapes the quality of your rest and the clarity of your morning. Replace chaotic or passive habits with intentional patterns of closure. What's one repeated behavior in your evenings that may be disrupting your ability to truly rest? Create a 15-minute wind-down ritual tonight. One cue, one calming activity, one intentional close to the day. Chapter 10: From Reaction to Rhythm. Modern life rewards reactivity. Notifications, emails, headlines, demands, it's all designed to keep you responding, bouncing from urgency to urgency. The problem? A reactive life is a borrowed life. You spend your energy answering everyone else's priorities while your own rhythm gets buried beneath the noise. Rituals offer an antidote. They shift you from reaction to rhythm, from scattered to steady, from being pulled in 100 directions to moving in one clear one. Reaction is instinctual. It's survival mode. Something happens, you respond. Maybe with anger. Maybe with avoidance. Maybe with silence. It feels like control, but it's often the absence of it. Rhythm, on the other hand, is chosen. It's deliberate. It's the decision to move through your day on your terms, guided by pre-decided rituals that hold your shape when the world tries to distort it. You can tell when someone lives by reaction. They're always behind, always hurried, always apologizing for being late, tired, or scattered. Their days blur together because they're not rooted in any consistent rituals. They're not bad people, they're just out of sync. Their nervous systems are fried. Their attention is fragmented. And their goals feel far away because they're too busy putting out fires to build anything meaningful. Rhythm creates space. Space to think, to move, to respond with intention. And it doesn't require hours of free time. It just requires anchors. Rituals are those anchors. They're the beats that give your day structure. Even in chaos, rhythm holds. Think of a drummer keeping time during a live performance. The music may shift. The tempo may rise and fall. But the rhythm is the constant that holds everything together. That's what rituals do for your life. They keep time. They keep you grounded. And the more you live in rhythm, the less reactive you become. When something unexpected happens, you don't flail. You pause. You breathe. You return to your anchors. Not because you're unbothered, but because you're prepared. This isn't about ignoring urgency. It's about not being owned by it. Some things require immediate attention. Most don't. But if you haven't trained your nervous system through daily rhythm, everything feels like a crisis. Consider how many small interruptions steal your energy each day. A message. A notification. A mental spiral. Without rituals in place, each one pulls you off course. But with rhythm, you always know where to return. You have a set point. A foundation. A through line. Living in rhythm means designing your day around intentional transitions. Morning rituals that set direction. Midday rituals that reset your focus. Evening rituals that prepare for rest. These are not luxuries. They're the infrastructure of a well-lived life. You don't need perfect conditions to build rhythm. You just need consistency. Even 5-minute rituals, repeated daily, can change your baseline. You begin to recognize your internal cues. You respond instead of react. You move from task to task with more presence, less panic. And rhythm is contagious. The people around you feel it. You become a steadying presence in a reactive world. You stop being the person who always feels behind. You become the person who walks with intention, even in uncertainty. That's the gift of ritual. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes how you show up. It transforms reactivity into rhythm. And rhythm, when protected and practiced, becomes peace. Because in a world of noise, the person who knows their rhythm owns their direction. Reaction scatters your energy, rhythm brings it into alignment. Rituals act as anchors that stabilize your day and regulate your response. Even in chaos, rhythm creates consistency, clarity, and calm. Where in your life are you most reactive, and what daily rhythm could anchor you instead? Choose one moment where you often feel reactive. Design a 3-minute ritual to practice calm, clarity, or pause before responding. Chapter 11. Build a life that builds you back. The rituals you build shape more than your day. They shape your direction. And over time, your direction becomes your destiny. But here's the deeper truth. The right rituals don't just push you forward. They give back. They replenish, restore, rebuild. They don't just demand effort, they return energy. They create a life that builds you back. Too many people live on the edge of depletion. Always giving, producing, responding, achieving, rarely pausing to receive, to reflect, to refill. They see rituals as one more task, one more thing to maintain. But true rituals are not burdens. They're reinforcements. They don't just make you more productive, they make you more whole. When rituals are built with wisdom, they become self-supporting. They create a system where growth feels natural, not forced. Where clarity becomes a default, not a fight. Where peace finds you in the middle of pressure, not just on the other side of it. This is what it means to build a life that builds you back. It's a shift from chasing outcomes to living in alignment. From measuring success by speed to measuring it by sustainability. The question is no longer, how much can I do before I burn out? The question is, what rhythms will allow me to stay consistent without losing myself in the process? That's the secret high performers eventually discover. It's not the intensity of their effort that sustains them, it's the intelligence of their rituals. They've learned that systems outperform willpower. That reflection outlasts reaction. That alignment matters more than adrenaline. You don't have to hustle harder to build the life you want. You have to choose rituals that echo your values, that match your mission, that serve both your goals and your soul. That's not soft. That's strategy. Imagine a life designed like this. Your mornings start with intention, not interruption. Your midday includes renewal, not just output. Your evenings close with peace, not noise. Not every moment is perfect, but the pattern holds. And when the pattern holds, you hold. You wake up not wondering who you are, but remembering. You move through your day not chasing meaning, but carrying it. You end your night not with regret, but with resolve. And this kind of life isn't built by chance. It's built by ritual. So now, the mirror turns to you. What kind of life are your current rituals building? What rhythms are on autopilot, and which ones need to be reprogrammed? What rituals are depleting you, and which could start restoring you? Start small. One shift. One anchor. One repeatable act of alignment. Because a single ritual, done with intention, can change the texture of your entire day. Stack enough of them, and they'll change the structure of your life. You don't have to know every step to get started. You just need to start where you are, with what you have, with what you already do. Then refine. Replace. Reinforce. Because the truth is, every day is a vote. Every ritual is a builder. And every pattern, when repeated, becomes a pathway. So build wisely. Build gently. Build strong. Build a life that doesn't just ask everything from you, but gives something back. Because those are the lives that last. The lives that overflow. The lives that leave a mark. And they're not built in a day. They're built by what you do with it. The right rituals don't just drive success, they sustain your spirit. A life of alignment is created through rhythms that replenish, not just require. One intentional ritual can restructure the emotional tone of your entire life. Which ritual in your life feels most life-giving, and how can you reinforce it starting this week? Choose one restorative ritual that supports you emotionally or mentally. Schedule it daily for the next 7 days, no compromise, no delay. Take care and be well.